I've always felt in my gut if a real true night hunter could ever create his own weapon sight with everything he ever wanted, at least for hunters, this industry could finally come full circle. It's been the other way around for long enough. People making units for a lifestyle that, frankly, they know little to nothing about. You can't offer the best product till you fully understand the guy you're making it for. The truth of it is, no one knows what a night hunter wants and needs from their thermal better than a real night hunter. And that's not just my opinion, that's a fact.
iRay's about to kill the game, buddy. It's awesome. I'll be honest with you, I could call it a night, but I ain't going to.
You ever wonder what would happen if you could take every thermal ever made and take the absolute best parts of all of them and combine them together into one? What kind of monster would that be? Every unit I've ever got my hands on, and I've ran just about all of them, always seem to have one or two things missing, like the battery life sucks, or not enough magnification, or it won't record internally, and if they do, the footage looks like garbage. Regardless, most of them have good traits, but I've yet to find one that doesn't fall short of the mark in one aspect or another. That is until I met RICO. And to be more precise, RICO Alpha, the mother of all thermal. First of all, the thing looks badass, and if I had to describe it, the first thing that comes to mind is the look of a stealth bomber, like with all the sleek lines and angles that just scream, I'm about to kick some ass. That's the Alpha. There's nothing out there quite like it. Just from looks alone, it's a one-off that stands in a category of its own. But setting all that aside, I'm not here to talk about how it looks, because everyone knows beauty is only skin deep, and looks can be deceiving. So I'm here to show you what it does on the inside, because that's what really matters. You could have the best looking thermal scope ever made, but if it don't perform properly, it's worthless. So let's focus on what it'll do, and I promise you by the end of this show, you'll understand why every other thermal I own besides iRay has just been put up for sale. And that's a true story. I was introduced to iRay a few months back by a friend, and he told me I've got to check out this new scope. Well, being skeptical yet optimistic, I figured what the heck, what have I got to lose? So I met up with him just to see for myself if the hype he was putting into this thing was really legit or not. Well, to my surprise, I will never forget the first time I put my eye up to the RICO, and I knew instantly there was something special about it. It completely blew me away how clear it was. Every unit out there uses what's called a thermal core or sensor, if you will, to essentially measure the difference in temperature of the objects in front of it. That's all thermal really is, averaging temperature between objects to make something hotter than its surroundings stand out. Now, most of all the big name thermal companies out there use the same cores from the same manufacturer. Well, you may ask, why does that matter? Well, if you think about it, if they're all for the most part using the same sensor from the same place, how is one different from another? The answer to that question is in the image processing. That's where you'll find the secret sauce. Not only does iRay make their own core, they also have the best image processing algorithm ever developed. It's a proprietary image processing algorithm called Matrix 3, and until you've seen it firsthand, you won't fully understand the difference. This is footage shot with a 1280 resolution iRay core using Matrix 3, just to show you how clean the image is. And the coolest part is, every RICO uses the same algorithm as the super high resolution stuff like you see here. That's why when you look through the eyepiece of the Alpha for the first time, you'll see the difference immediately like I did. To put it in perspective, if you took the clearest thermal you've ever looked through and improved the image by not quite 50%, but close, that's what you get with the Alpha. In my opinion, Matrix 3 image processing will one day become the new future standard across the industry among all the brands. Once the competition starts losing enough business, they'll realize real quick they have to have something like it or better to compete. I'm confident there's enough guys out there like me. As soon as they get their hands on this thing and use it just one time, everything's gonna change. This segment of Night Crew is brought to you by iRayUSA, High Performance Thermal Optics. AllPredatorCalls.com, your predator calling superstore. And by Recon, rugged and ready. There's so many different things that have been built into the scope. There's absolutely no way that someone that wasn't a night hunter developed it. There's so much knowledge that's been poured into this unit. It's mind-boggling. You can go through this scope section by section and see all the fine details that were actually incorporated into this scope through years of knowledge, years of failure, and what they liked and what they disliked about all the other thermals that they've ever used. To me, if I'm looking to get into the thermal market and I really need advice on a unit, I want to talk to the guy that does it all the time. No matter how you slice it, there's no substitute for experience. The knowledge that it took to develop this unit is by far, hands down, way beyond anything else on the market. Anything that you look at has a purpose. Here's a good example. Look at the focus. If you're in a shooting position and you want to go focus, you don't have to do this and turn a dial on the top. All you got to do is just hold your hand right here. It's basically a pivot. It pivots from one side to the other. When you're trying to get on an animal and you're trying to be steady, holding your hand right here and focusing keeps you more solid than having to do this. A lot of units have the focus up on the top where you have to turn it like that with two fingers. This one just takes one. Again, something only a real night hunter would even know. I mean, look at the buttons. The buttons themselves all have markers and they're all at different levels. So your main menu button is raised higher than the rest of the buttons. The reason that iRay did that is basically when you're out in the dark and stuff's going down, the last thing that you need to be worried about is figuring out where your zoom's at, where your menu button's at. If you need to do something or change something, you don't even have to look at it. You don't have to turn a light on. You don't have to do anything. All you got to do is just put your hand up there in the dark and you can feel exactly where each individual button is based on the markers that identify each one. The raised profile on the buttons, no one has done that. Again, that's something only a true night hunter would even know to put in a scope. If there's one single thing for me that put this unit over the top when it comes to detail, and that's running external battery packs. If you've ever run off a battery pack on a thermal, every other weapon sight I've ever seen, the connection to go to an external power source is in the worst spot possible. It's almost like it was an afterthought where they assume that no matter where you hunt or what kind of conditions you're in, that you're always going to use an internal battery. In certain situations, like with the O'Neill guys that hunt literally in sub-freezing temperatures and even sub-zero temps a lot, they don't have a choice but to run on external power. And every unit I've ever seen, the power supply that goes into the side of the unit, it sticks out the side or it's just in an awkward position. It just gets in the way. Like when you've got the weapon in front of your chest and you're walking into a stand or you're walking in to kill pigs, the thing's hitting you in the chest. It's always putting pressure on the connection. It's just in the wrong place. If there's one single thing about this scope that put it over the top for me is when I flipped it over. I'm gonna take the unit off and flip it over where you can see exactly what I'm about to show you. If you're running from an external battery pack and here's your power supply, check this out. Now that is slick. I've seen a lot of cool features on this scope, but by far, that is the coolest thing that I've ever seen on a thermal. And the coolest part is it's magnetic. So if you're using the Alpha for spotting and shooting and you want to remove your scope to spot, all you got to do is pull the scope off the gun. Your power supply stays with the gun, put it back on the pick rail, and it clicks right back into place. I'll show you in a real life situation. They're about to come out with a mount that will hold that power supply in place. And when you go to put the RICO back on the gun and set it down, see how that grabbed it and just clicked it right back into place? That's awesome. You don't have to fool with it. It's not in the way. No matter what you do, it's always gonna be sitting there for when you take the scope off. You basically pull your scope off, you spot with it, you go to put it back on the gun, you just lay it up there, and that sucker finds it and clicks it right into place where it's supposed to be. That's got to be one of the coolest things I've ever seen. I guarantee you James and Keith are going to love that, because I can sit here all day and do that. If you can't tell right now, I'm like a kid in a candy store. It's just been a long time, if ever, something this well thought out's been offered to guys who live our lifestyle. It wasn't made for the military. It was made for us, the hunter. If the military ever used it, they'd be glad they did. But its inception all spawned from someone just like us with one goal: give night hunters what they want and what they need to be more effective. I'm telling you guys, this is the one you want. It's legit. There's so many things that you'll love about this scope, and I haven't even gotten into the image quality. It's by far, hands down, better than anything I've ever used. If you ask why it matters, an actual hunter who does this stuff 3 to 4 nights a week developed this unit along with some of the best night hunters in the world. The answer is intimate knowledge that can only be obtained through experience. Most of, if not all, the other brands can't offer that without going to someone else for input. And that's if they even think they need input at all, which is a little scary if you think about it. Pardon the pun, but that's about like taking a shot in the dark and hoping you hit something. The creator of the Alpha has eliminated any possibility of disconnect between the hunting world and manufacturing world and merged them together as one. Until now, that's never been done. But now we as night hunters can finally say we've got someone in our corner. They say if you want something done right, it's best you just do it yourself. Well, here you go.
I think you got that one too.